Today I want to take a look at how to create a SharePoint list from an Excel spreadsheet. Here we're looking at Northwind traders with a customer table, and we have 29 rows of data. They are well structured. They are marked up as a table, as a named range. That doesn't have to be that way. I mean, certainly if you started out with simply text, maybe a CSV, or kind of a more plain formatting, one of the things we want to do on our source data is to go ahead and use this Format as Table feature. I'll highlight that to the center. Format as Table. This is going to be the key that will mark the headers, and it will mark the boundary. How many rows, how many columns, and it really frames the data for rows, columns, and headers to make it well structured such that we can import. So this is a brand new workbook. We're going to go ahead and save this as a 4-letter XLSX, and we'll call it Northwind Customers. There we go. Saved. Beautiful. And coming to SharePoint, the question is, how do we create a list now that we have a spreadsheet with a table? In the old days, you would come in and you would invoke from the SharePoint side. You would say you wanted a new list from Excel, and there's some ways that you can do that kind of thing. There are two different methods, and I want to cover both. In the past, it was more this, we'll call it the pull method, where SharePoint is pulling the data. An alternate would be the push method, where Excel pushes and uploads the data. We'll take a look at both. We'll go ahead and take a look at this one where, let me back up a few steps. So site contents we go to first, and our goal is to have our Excel spreadsheet listed right there. To achieve that goal, we're going to click New List on Site Contents. I'll zoom in on that a little more for everybody. New List, make it kind of easy. And in the modern UI, we have Import from Excel, which is a pretty handy thing to see our menu right here on the center left. And this is going to want us to upload a file. Why did I mark it as a table previously? We're about to find out, because that's where we get our structure for the boundaries, what rows, what columns, and the table headers. What are the different field types and what are the names of those fields? So we'll go ahead and grab our file upload. We gave it the file Northwind Customers. And you'll see that we have a drop down. Let me zoom in on this. That says select a table from this file. We have table 1. That's an automatic name from when we did the Format as Table button. And here we have a lot of different columns available. It's kind of interesting. Like it actually marks do not import for the very first one. And then it has the others labeled as well. And you can see the headers, single line of text, number, the title field. Kind of has a pretty good handle on the structure of what our Excel file looks like. And scrolling to the right, we can see all of the additional fields, and we can validate the data type. Most of these are going to be single line of text. There's a couple that are marked as number, like the zip code, which I think is interesting. But we'll go ahead and click Next, and we'll say Northwind Customers, and we're going to call this the pull method, because SharePoint is pulling the data. It's absorbing the Excel file. We use the modern UI to do new list from Excel, and we pulled the data by handing it an Excel file. That Excel file was well structured so that SharePoint could understand all the different data types and bring things forward. And it's kind of interesting too, because if you check out the list settings over here in the top right with the gear icon, we can come in and take a look at the schema, the fields, and what types of fields were created. And here we could see that it did numeric for email. Probably not, but that's because we didn't have good sample data. But it is trying to infer data types is the point. And if you had other things like date time or maybe more rich data types, decimal, currency, don't really have that in the data set here, but if you did have dollar amounts and currency, it would work on formatting those. So just wanted to highlight that it is aware of formatting and it is bringing that through. So if we come to site contents, we'll see our Northwind customers pull, and that was the one created by Yeah, using the web interface. Now, if we want to do the other method from Excel, we'll fix up a typo here on Northwind. Go ahead and correct that. Interestingly enough, when you do that, it will not modify left navigation, so we'll kind of update our typo on the left-hand side there. Cool. So what about the other method? What if you don't have this? Your web browser is not working the way you thought. I don't know, it could be some other reasons. But if we wanted to look at the push method, I'm in Excel. I want to push this to SharePoint. Okay, how? After you've marked as a table, when you're working with data, normally you're not going to see the available menu that we're looking for. But once you create a table, you will. There's an option up here called Export to SharePoint List. That's what we're going for. That's the good stuff. And if we go ahead and click on Export to SharePoint List, it's going to prompt us about where we want to put things. Of course, we have our site ready to go. You don't want to put in any home pages. You want to end this as the site URL itself. And then we want a name and description. This is really going to be for a list, not a table. Yeah, the Excel people created it. They're going to call everything a table. So this is the push from Excel. We're going to give the list a different name. Go ahead and click Next. It's going to have a few things here about the schema and verify each column, so show the correct data type, click Cancel, and confirm that the key cell can be converted. So they're giving you a preview of how it's going to do the data typing. Fair enough. We'll click Finish. And what you'll see is very briefly at the bottom it was saying adding records. You get this pop-up with a hyperlink. And then in our browser, we can go check. And we'll see a new list for push, which also has 29 records, matching just like we had with pull. So this is the push from Excel, and it brought in all of our fields. We can go check out list settings. We see everything brought through here. One difference I did notice, the ID number. It ignored it in the pull, but it preserved it in the push. Not a big deal. A lot of data sets are not going to have a column called ID. That is a reserved word. SharePoint has an ID column. So when we pull from SharePoint, it was ignoring it. But when we pushed from Excel, it kind of forced it and called it ID1. Just a small observation, but the push from Excel seems to be a little more technical, a little more precise. So these are the two different ways you can create a list from Excel using either the push or pull method. Thanks for watching.